Welcome back, everyone, to MUFC versus everybody. I am your host, Sean, and I appreciate you stopping by. Today, I wanted to get a head start on another little series that I've been wanting to do for a little while, but now I'm finally getting the time. So, if you remember, we did a little mini series on the positions that I deem to be United's kind of priority positions that we needed to strengthen going into the summer transfer window. If you haven't yet seen any of those videos, please go back, check them out. Don't forget to leave your thoughts, but most importantly, don't forget to hit the like button on the videos and subscribe to the channel if you're new. But remember, in those videos, we looked at defensive midfield, striker, center back, left back, and then we looked at a few wild card signings that could be super, super cheap or even free this summer. So I've had a lot of fun doing those. I do like to do a little scouting, a little, research on that kind of thing. And so today we're going to start on a new series as we have another week off in between matches, where I'm going to take a look at some of the managers that we have been heavily linked to in recent weeks. Now, I'm going to preface this that saying, I'm not here to say I want Ten Hag out. Just me talking about these managers doesn't mean I want Ten Hag gone. But again, I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't take a moment to discuss some of these. And today I'm also going to start ranking some of these manager links just on some criteria that I've decided to come up with. I want to rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 based on 5 different criteria. And so we're going to get started on that. Before we do get started, please like the video. It lets me know that I'm not wasting my time. It lets me know that you guys at least either find me hilarious or embarrassing, or you agree with me, or whatever it is. This just lets me know. It gives me good feedback on where you guys are. Subscribe, please, if you're new. That's going to help us as well grow the channel, reach more people, get more people involved, and then hopefully in the future help me start to give back a little bit out of appreciation and thanks to you guys engaging and participating. I really can't wait to get that started. So check us out on Twitter as well, MUFC versus everybody. Been a little quiet today, although I think my latest tweet was complaining about the City Forest game and Ederson completely wiping out a Forest player just like Onana did yesterday. We concede a pen, City do not. It is what it is at this point. Death taxes and United getting shafted. So in any case, let's dive in. I'll give you a little preview of what you can expect. There are 5 managers that I'm looking at more closely. Some of them you might not like. Some of them maybe you don't really are aware of as being linked. I've not brought up a couple that I don't think are going to be serious contenders. So first off, I'm not going to be talking about Zinedine Zidane. I think that that's a non-starter. I don't think that that was ever a serious connection. I know there are some stories that came out recent weeks about how Zidane was learning English lessons. That happened like 2 years ago as well. So we're not going to dive into Zidane. It's not going to happen. It's a non-starter. I'm not going to talk about Nagelsmann anymore, Julian Nagelsmann, even though he would have been, all things equal. If, let's say, at the end of the season, it's just Ten Hag's gone, Nagelsmann would have been my pick. But it sounds like he's sticking around with the German national team for a while. And it is what it is. And in that same vein, I am not going to talk about Gareth Southgate. In my opinion, that is also a non-starter. That sounds like the media connecting some dots with some connections between Ashworth and whatnot, and I just don't think it's a thing. He's going to be with the Euros anyway, so I don't think I think it's a non-starter, Gareth Southgate. So those are 3 that we've been linked with, but I'm not going to address because I just don't see it happening. I could be wrong. You could be thinking, oh, I just don't want those guys. That's why I'm not talking about them. Maybe. I just don't see it happening. So the 5 that I will discuss, though, are Thiago Motta, currently at Bologna, Thomas Tuchel, currently at Bayern, heavily, linked to potentially staying at Bayern, but they also did confirm that he's leaving. I know Bayern did. The fans, we just talked about that today in a video, the Bayern fans did start a petition that as of Tuesday last week had 10,000 signatures wanting to keep Tuchel around. for another season. We'll see what happens there, but we're still going to talk about him because it's heavily linked. A lot of rumors that he wants to come back to the Premier League, and obviously it was also announced not that long ago that he would be leaving Bayern. So next on the list would be Ruben Amorim, Sporting Lisbon's manager, heavily linked to Liverpool, did meet with West Ham, interviewed by Chelsea, and before Poch was offered the job. So he is rumored to be looking for a step up. We'll be talking about him. Graham Potter, free agent right now, sacked by Chelsea after doing a lot of good things with Brighton. We're going to talk about him as well. And then Roberto De Zerbi, current Brighton manager, not doing so hot, but we've been heavily linked with him as well. A lot of people kind of go back and forth on how they feel about Roberto De Zerbi. I'm not super convinced, but he's one of the heavily linked managers, so we're going to talk about that. Today, though, we are going to start things off by talking about Erik ten Hag, and then we're going to talk about Graham Potter. As I was doing the series and I was starting to do research and starting to write up everything I wanted to talk about, I've quickly realized it was either going to have to be broken into smaller portions like we did with the positions for transfer targets, or it was going to be like a 2-hour video. I don't think you guys want to sit and watch me for 2 hours. I don't know if I have it in me to sit and talk for 2 hours. I would get tired of my own voice, but I think if we break it up into smaller portions, maybe do one manager at a time like we did with positions, I think that's more manageable. Today it'll be a twofer because I will be talking about Ten Hag first. I wanted to talk about our current manager, and then I'll also talk about Graham Potter. I think probably do Ruben Amorim after that, and then we'll go on, so on and so forth. So that is where things are going today. Before we do get stuck in, please don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and lock yourselves in because we're in for a long ride today. It won't be too long, but it's going to be a mouthful and it's going to be a fun little video. So let me know what you think and let's get started. When it comes to managers, we do have to ask ourselves some hard questions. Not just about the current manager, but also any manager that we'll be thinking of. You know, the doubts and the questions and the confusion that we have with our current managers, those are the things we have to carry over into criteria for a new manager as well. We can't just, think what they've done. We have to think of what we think about them as well. Questions that I'm putting out there as I go through this list are, can the manager, can he handle an injury crisis? We've seen that's been a difficulty for a lot of managers this season, not just ours. Can he manage egos and the pressures of a big club like United? Can tactics and decisions impact a game, sometimes mid-game when things aren't going well? Can you bring on subs and things to make changes? Can you alter your tactics as needed based on players available, based on the opposition? There's always that fine line, right? It's a never-ending battle, style of play versus adjusting to the opposition. What do you want to do? I think that there's room for flexibility there. I like to see managers who maybe do play like out from the back like we do. I like to see against certain opposition like Liverpool or City, we do have to switch to a counterattack because not only are they vulnerable, but we've seen that we can do that. So in any case, I'm kind of compiling a lot of these little questions, and I've come up with 5 areas that I want to look at, and I'm going to rate each of these managers on a scale of 1 to 10, what I think, where they rank in those little criteria. So number 1, tactics and man management. Okay, or sorry, tactics and match impact, not man management. So again, how are your tactics and how are you impacting a match with your decision? Number 2, man management. How do you handle the players from a fitness standpoint, from an interaction standpoint, from an engagement standpoint? Like, how do you handle that? Rotation, all of it goes in there. Number 3, big club pressure, big player egos. How do you handle a step up from where you are now to a club like United? Because we do have big egos in the dressing room. We do have expensive players. It is a club with pressure, scrutiny, criticism, coverage like no other in world football. Let's just have it right. That's just the way it is. Not every manager can handle it. We saw what happened to David Moyes. We're kind of seeing a little bit of it kind of coming out with Ten Hag. He's been a little bit more prickly, a little bit more impatient. I'm not saying I disagree with him in that regard, but I'm saying the pressure piles on. It doesn't get any easier. Number 4, crisis management. How do you handle just chaos that goes around at the club. We've seen Ten Hag have to deal with a lot of stuff, not just the injury crisis, but just the fallout with Cristiano Ronaldo, the fallout from the club sale, all of it. How do you navigate that? And I don't think it's fair that a manager has to deal with the fallout from ownership decisions like that and face the media and kind of be left hung out to dry. But at the same time, how do you manage that? And number 5, qualifications. How are your previous clubs and your performances there and what you've won and achieved? How do they prepare you for this job? Are you qualified? Was David Moyes qualified to take over at United? A lot of people would say no. I would agree. So those are my criteria. Those are what I'm going to be kind of gauging these managers on as I rank them a little bit. I'm not going to total them up or anything. This is what I think. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree? You disagree? As we're going along. So let me know. So we're going to start with Erik Ten Hag because he's our current manager. It is who we have, and it's worth to take a look at how he falls into this. So we'll look at his pros. Okay. He did a lot at Ajax. Whether you think that the Eredivisie ranks in top leagues or not, doesn't matter. He did a lot at Ajax. They weren't winning as much before he arrived. He did a lot with them in Champions League. So you have to take that into consideration when it comes to your qualifications. His first season at United was tremendous. And like we've talked about, maybe he overachieved, but he still achieved 3rd place finish, qualifying for Champions League in his first season at the club, a trophy. Whether you rank it high or not, Carabao Cup is part of the domestic quadruple that another club in red was talking all that big stuff about achieving, and they didn't even do it. So Carabao Cup trophy, 3rd place your first year is a big deal. He's still got the best win percentage of any manager post Fergie. He won more matches in his first season, his first 50 matches in the league or something, than Klopp and Pep did. He's doing better than Arteta in his first seasons. What Ten Hag did was a thing of beauty. We've already talked about the home record we had his first season. I think that a lot of this is academic at this point, right? He plays the youth. We saw Garnacho come through the ranks last season, and this season we've seen Kobbie Mainoo, and we're probably going to see a couple more going into next season. Ethan Wheatley has been given minutes. Kemp Wall has been given minutes. Ten Hag's shown that he does trust the youth, but he has very strict, high standards when it comes to trusting the youth. Not everyone is just going to automatically play. We've seen a lot of youth players get sold already. We have seen him implement some strong disciplinary standards. A lot of these players have been getting away with a lot over the years. And I'm not going to name too many by name because I don't feel like dealing with that. But we've seen that they've getting away with a lot. They've down tools when they don't like a manager. They've gotten a lot of managers sacked, and a lot of them have been getting away with murder. Ollie even said these players aren't fit. They're not training very well. Ten Hag comes in, and whether you like his standards or not, as far as Ten Hag, if you want to think he's too strict, you want to call him a bully, whatever you want to do, he's had the same standards for every player, from someone like Garnacho all the way up to Cristiano Ronaldo. It's just the way it is. It's not about punishment. There are consequences, and sometimes consequences are punishment, sometimes they're not, but it's expectations and consequences. It's very simple. Ten Hag seems to me more like, this is the way we're doing it, this is the train we're running on, you need to get on or you're going to get left behind. It doesn't matter who you are. 5-time Champions League winner, doesn't matter. 17-year-old, doesn't matter. Follow the standards. Show me that you can do that. Second season's been a bit rough patch for Ten Hag. We've gone into detail about the injury crisis. I think that at that point, you can't discount that. You can't just disregard it as not a big deal, because it is. But our Champions League campaign this year was a bit of a shambles. A lot of that was down to some players making very costly errors. I mean, we put 3 past Bayern Munich and we still lost. They had to score 4 to beat us. I mean, we're scoring a lot of goals. We're conceding a lot of silly ones too. And the Champions League was almost like a beta test for some of these new players, especially Onana, because he needed some time to bed in, and he was very shaky in the Champions League. But when we've seen him get better, he does make a few clangers now and then, but it is what it is. I think it's lazy to blame Ten Hag for the mistakes of players that he signed, like Onana. I think that's just very lazy analysis. I wouldn't even go as far to call it analysis. I think it's just lazy. I think that's just looking at correlation and saying causation. 2 and 2 makes 5. I don't think it is what it is, you know. And players make mistakes. They're human beings. It's going to happen whether or not the manager signed them or not. There's a lot of players that made mistakes under Fergie. A lot of players that made mistakes under Pep, under Klopp. Is it their fault for signing them? Do we blame them? No, we blame Ten Hag because it's easy when your agenda is already Ten Hag out. So we were all under the impression when it comes to Ten Hag that when you appoint a manager, right, you do so because of the way he plays at the previous club, along with what he's won there. And so when it comes to Ten Hag, remember, we all wanted Ten Hag. We all looked at the way Ajax were playing. I know I did. And it was like that. Ajax under Ten Hag played more like United than United do. They remind me a lot of like the '08 team where it was just fast, interchanged. Like, it was beautiful. He's not a bad manager, Ten Hag. We all wanted him. He played good football at Ajax. He achieved a lot. But the question remains, is the job a little too big for him? Is he out of his depth? Again, I got to repeat myself. This isn't me saying Ten Hag in or out. This is me asking objective, hard, important questions that I would ask of any manager. Is the job too big? The job was too big for David Moyes, for sure. It just was. He couldn't handle it. He looked like a deer in headlights from day one. Ten Hag, is the job too big? Is the chaos too much for any one manager to deal with? This doesn't mean he's a bad manager at all, but we ask the same question about the players. Is the job too big? Is the league too much for certain players, like Lindelof, like Antony? Is it the league too much? Is he cut out for it? Is Ten Hag perhaps too stubborn for his own good when it comes to tactics or loyalty to certain players? I've and many others have called out his loyalty to Antony. I have called out his stubborn adherence to his system without the players needed for it. You can't play out from the back with Harry Maguire or Casemiro. We've seen that. It's cost us trouble. Casemiro just cost us a goal. We conceded another stupid goal in the match before that with the same kind of thing because of the system. And we have to learn, and Ten Hag's got to learn that sometimes it is needs must when there's injuries. That's just the way it is. Yes, it would be great if all the players could get on board, but with time, yeah, that might be able to happen. And I don't just mean a preseason that helps. I mean as much time as you give Pep and Klopp and Arteta over time, when you can phase out older players who don't fit the system that weren't your signings, and start with what we're doing with the youth. We're implementing a style of play. We can see that happen more and more. So when you do lose a player to injury or suspension, you don't see as big of a dip. That takes time. But in the interim, until you get to that point, what can you do? Because it's clear that the system doesn't suit the players, but we're sticking with it. That's that stubbornness that I'm talking about. Can Ten Hag manage his way through an injury crisis? Evidence says no. It just does. I feel for him as far as the injury crisis is concerned, but we've seen that he doesn't change depending on, he's got Casemiro playing center back and we still want to try to play out from the back. We've got no midfield. It's a giant hole. You can land a freaking plane in our midfield. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? It's like he is willing to die for the sake of his system paying off. And that's fine if that's more power to you. We see with Ange Postecoglou this season, he'd rather stick to his system and lose by huge margins like he just did earlier against Arsenal than switch because he believes in his system that much. I call that stubbornness, but who knows? Can Ten Hag impact a game with decisions? This could go either way. By February last season, his sub set a scoring record for the league, scoring more goals off the bench than any other club in the top 5 leagues. We saw against Coventry recently in the FA Cup semifinal that Ten Hag was speaking to Diogo Dalot on the touchline, and then a few seconds later, Dalot gets to the byline, picks out McTominay for our goal. Dalot then turns and points to Ten Hag, during the celebration. So it's clear Ten Hag he can impact the match. He can do something mid-match. We don't see it as often as I would like, but so again, it's a question. Yes, he can, but are the times where he shows it, are they few and far between? Is it a question of can he do it more often, or has he just not been doing it more often? These are, again, hard questions to ask. I'm not even posing that I have the answers, but these are the kind of questions we need to be asking right now of any manager, not just Ten Hag. So the Ten Hag out crowd is large. It's growing. Whether you like it or not, it's growing. But a big percentage of it has existed since before he even took over, and whether that's in the media or in the fan base, people who don't watch Ajax, people who don't know about that. I mean, even like you have players who don't even follow. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo said in his interview, like, imagine never even heard of. So why does that make him? Why does that make Ronaldo right? Because of he's ignorant about other managers or other players. Like that's when did we decide that ignorance is an argumentative tactic that like doesn't make sense to me. So some people were out from day one. You know, someone like Simon Jordan, who was criticizing the way Ten Hag was dressed. He's been out since day one. Ten Hag out since day one. And coming back, I think a large part of it has to do with what Ten Hag accomplished. He's kind of shaken this whole Premier League as the dominant league kind of thing, Premier League proven myth. He came in and kind of shook that up a little bit. The same as way Bruno Fernandes did, and we talked about that too. Another large portion of the Ten Hag out crowd existed following his fallout with Ronaldo. This is where the player FC thing comes into play. There are a lot of Ronaldo fans who chose him over Ten Hag because Ronaldo very carefully crafted his interview in a way that threw in some truth about the ownership and the condition of the club and the facilities, and made it seem like, oh, he was blowing the lid wide open. We already knew all that. Ragnick said the same thing. Other people said the same thing. David Gill said it in an interview with Rio Ferdinand recently. We've all known this stuff, so it's not like Ronaldo was some whistleblower who was making a sacrifice. He wanted his way out. He wasn't getting his way, and he wanted out. But a lot of people sided with Ronaldo in that. And then when you add the Sancho stuff, people are starting to say, well, Ten Hag must be a bully. Look, he can't handle egos. Or the egos can't handle themselves. Egos are a little spoiled. There's when it crosses a line from the people using the term personality to using the term ego, that usually tells you something. That usually tells you this person is very self-inflated in terms of their sense of who they are, their entitlement, whatever you want to call it. They're used to getting a certain way. When they don't get a certain way, they throw a fit. Another portion of the Ten Hag out crowd exists simply because of the players he's brought to the club. A lot of people don't like that Ten Hag brought players that he's worked with before, but it's just there's not a lot of managers do that. Jose Mourinho pretty much brought Nemanja Matic everywhere he went. You know, it happens all the time. You see it everywhere. It's not this crazy thing. Plus, it's not a big deal when everyone else in football buys Ajax players, but the moment an Ajax manager does it, all of a sudden becomes a huge deal, right? I think Lisandro Martinez has been one of our best players. It's a shame that he's been injured. I hope the injury isn't going to hamper him too long term in terms of his recovery, kind of like what we've seen with Shaw. But he's a good player. Anthony's not cut out for the league, but you don't ever know that until after the fact. And so it is what it is. A lot of the other players, he scouted Mason Mount a long time ago. A lot of clubs were in for Mason Mount this last summer, not just us. So he was going either way. Sounds like Ten Hag really liked him, and it was an opportunity to get him before other clubs did. Did we overpay? Yeah. Did we need to prioritize Mason Mount? Probably not. But you can't give a manager a fair assessment if you don't back them in those regards. I do think, though, that Ten Hag needed a bit of checks and balances when it comes to those kind of things. But it is what it is. Amrabat, not cut out for it. And this is kind of where I'm going to get into a little later in terms of Ten Hag's talent ID. He needs to aim higher and realize that, a player who was good in the Eredivisie, a player who was good in another club might not cut it out in this league. And obviously there's no way to know that, but it's something to consider before making the final decision. And so then there's arguably justifiably so another portion of the Ten Hag out crowd that turned on him this season based on just where we are this season. And I get it. We have not been doing well. We've conceded a lot of bad goals. He's made a lot of bad decisions and hasn't really managed very well. And it is what it is. Did we overachieve last season and now we're kind of regressing to the mean, or have injuries been the cause of our decline? Our points total this year is not going to be anywhere near what it was last year. I think the maximum we can get is 66, 67, which is going to be 8 or 9 less than what we did last year. So we're set for a worse season than last season. Last season, it is what it is. You can't discount the injuries, like I said, but manager has to navigate those better. And in Ten Hag's case, it means adjusting tactics, which he hasn't done. And so you can't force a square peg into a round hole, and Ten Hag doesn't seem like he realizes that. So let's look at some of this criteria. Tactics and match impact. I've rated him a 4 out of 10 with an asterisk. And the asterisk is more because of the injuries. We've seen tactics. We know how he wants to play. We've seen how he wants to play. It's just, we haven't seen it enough, and it doesn't work when you don't have the players. His tactics are very player specific, and it does take time to implement that. His tactics are very similar to what Klopp and what Pep do. High press, quick transition, win the ball high up the pitch, quick transition, high line. But we just don't have the players, and Ten Hag hasn't had the time to kind of phase out players, phase in the players, and really get his squad. And plus, the injuries just make it near impossible. Has he had too many injuries to fully implement it? I think so. He's not. We've seen him make decisions in match that have impacts, but I haven't seen it enough. We concede a lot of late goals, especially when we're trying to see out a result. And that's a big point against him because it has cost us points. It has cost us matches. I have said many times, I've defended him in terms of why do you need to tell Champions League winners, World Cup winners, full internationals, professionals, like why do you need to tell them to clear the ball from the box instead of trying to head it back to your keeper in a congested area? Why do you need to tell them to look out for a cutback? Because we've conceded those goals many times. How do you need to tell them, hey, we're up 3-0 in the second half going into the 7th minute against Coventry City in an FA Cup semifinal? All you guys need to do is control the ball, keep a hold of it. How do you need to tell players what to do in that situation? He tells players what to do. I think that a lot of them they get this kind of tunnel vision sometimes. We saw it against Chelsea. He was on the touchline telling them to calm down, control the ball, and they just didn't listen. So when you're any parents out there, do you feel like a failure if you tell your kids to do something and they just defy it? Are you the failure, or is it a clash of personalities? Or is it the kid being a kid? Is it the players being a player in Ten Hag's case? Like, you tell me. I'm not a parent. You tell me what you're thinking there. Man management and egos. I give him a 6 out of 10 because I do think that he has done a lot to set some new standards as far as discipline and expectations. I think that was very much needed at this club. And I do think that he does get on with the players. I think, again, it's just those big egos, the highly paid players that he didn't even sign that are causing a lot of these issues. And he has had fallouts with some players, but again, it's those big egos that are paid a lot. And we've seen that throughout the years, though, not just with Ten Hag. We saw it with a lot of other players. So it's not just a Ten Hag thing. He set a much needed standard for expectations and discipline, which several high players have tested, just like kids test the boundaries and the expectations with parents. He does have a bit of misplaced trust in some players, such as Anthony, and that's going to be costly, especially given the way other players have shown up, like Ahmad. I'm not going to say Ahmad is the next big thing. We don't need to sign anybody, but I think that Ahmad has at least shown that he is better than Anthony when he's come on. He can control the ball a little bit, and he can read the game a little bit better, in my opinion. So he gets 6 out of 10 for that part, but it's an iffy 6 out of 10. Big club pressure / personality gets a 5 out of 10 for this. It's a cop-out. It's a 5 out of 10, but it is what it is. Ajax are a big club with a very prestigious history, but it's still nowhere near United. Ten Hag doesn't exactly exude the kind of presence that like an Ancelotti or a Zidane will, whether that's in the dressing room, on the pitch, or in the pressers. Ten Hag instead relies more on his disciplinary standards. He's very blunt, very matter-of-fact, very straightforward. It's almost like talking to Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. There's just metaphors, all that stuff's going to kind of go, and he's just, but then we also hear that he is pretty funny, when he's talking to people behind the scenes. So is it just he kind of freaks out a little bit in front of the camera? Maybe is it just the pressure that's constantly coming at him that he can't quite manage? I don't know. Either way, he could definitely benefit from some media training, and he could absolutely benefit from some help in the recruitment. It's a job that he shouldn't have had to take on all on his own in terms of talent ID and scouting and recruitment. I know he wanted that control, but sometimes you have to take some of that control away for a manager's own good. Otherwise, you get managers like Conte who are like, I want to sign nobody under 30. Everybody's going to be experienced, and that's what we're doing. Or like Mourinho. Mourinho did the same thing. So you have to have a checks and balances. The manager's got to be flexible, but you also have to find that fine line between backing them and giving them what they might need. So there's an opportunity there, but he does need help because his talent ID has been hit or miss with more misses. Crisis management, another 5 out of 10. It may be harsh to dock Ten Hag points for not managing an injury crisis, but we've seen other managers navigate them in the past. A lot of clubs are dealing with a lot of injuries this year, and they're right up there with us. And these are clubs that are not expected to be up there with us. Oli was without 10 players against PSG in that second leg in the Champions League, and we managed to advance and knock them out. This doesn't just refer to injuries either, crisis management. This is talking about adversity, setbacks faced in matches, such as conceding a late goal, chasing a game, making mistakes. Ten Hag's United have come from behind several times to snatch victory, and we've already discussed the impact his subs have had. But he makes it worse when he makes some of these weird comments and pressers. So it doesn't seem like, again, that pressure, some of the crises, especially some of the chaos he's had to deal behind the scenes, he doesn't seem like he helps himself in a lot of these cases. A lot of it he did inherit, and a lot of it's not of his own doing, but at the same time, it's not necessarily about what caused it, it's about how you handle it. And I think he could improve a lot in that regard. Sometimes you do have to take a different tactical approach, which we've already seen he doesn't do on the pitch, so maybe it stands to reason he won't do that in some of these other situations as well. Number 5, qualifications. So this one I do give him an 8 out of 10. A lot of people maybe not rate the Dutch league. I think that that's a bit ignorant and a bit stubborn personally. I think that just shows you're not watching it very much. So many players from the Dutch league have been linked to big clubs and have gone on to big clubs throughout the years. It would be foolish not to rate the Dutch league. This criteria, qualifications, was arguably, for me anyway, Ten Hag's biggest plus. Aside from how his Ajax side played, which he's already said we're not going to be able to do, they played very well. He's got Ajax their first league title in 4 years, and he won 3 in a row. When he was there, could have been a 4th as well, but that league that year was canceled due to COVID. So they were the first league, if you remember, to cancel the league because of lockdown and because of the pandemic. So I think at that point when it was canceled, he was tied on points with Feyenoord, but he was first in the table with Ajax. So it could have been 4 in a row for him. And he got Champions League semifinals with Ajax for the first time since 1997. That's all 20 years basically. And he beat, along the way that season, he beat defending champions Real Madrid and Juventus. Then the following year, he handled Dortmund, who were led by Erling Haaland. Lisandro Martinez kept him so quiet that match. So he's shown that he can do it. So that's Ten Hag. Let me know what you think. 8 out of 10 for qualifications, 5 out of 10 for crisis management, 5 out of 10 for big club pressure / personality, 6 out of 10 for man management and egos, and an asterisk 4 out of 10 for tactics and match impact. And a lot of people are saying we can't see a style of play. You can see a style of play. It's just we don't have the players, and we make it look worse because Ten Hag is trying to play that way without the players he needs. And so he's not helping himself. So let me know what your thoughts are. You're probably going to disagree with a lot of what I just said. And that's okay. That's why we're here. It would be weird if we all just agreed with each other and sat in this echo chamber. I encourage feedback. I encourage sharing your thoughts. I'm not here to just only think that I'm right. This isn't me saying I'm right. This is me trying to give my own view on things, trying to be objective at the same time. It's not possible to be 100% objective with something like this, but I'm really trying here. So moving on to our first managerial link, which will wrap up today's video, but also start our series. We're going to talk a little bit today about Graham Potter. This could be a moot point if the rumors about him being considered for Ajax are true, but we're still going to talk about it anyway because he's been a heavily linked manager for United job for the last few months now. So let's dive right in. Potter was highly rated during his time at Brighton. Remember, he was the next big thing when he was at Brighton, and that is what got him the Chelsea job, right? His stock has dipped a bit following his poor tenure and subsequent sacking at Chelsea, but a lot of people still rate Potter. At the time of his sacking, he actually did have the lowest points per game of any Chelsea manager. I don't know where Poch is now. I didn't look at that, but he just didn't do a great job at Chelsea. And a lot of it is he walked into a crap situation, and the new owner there was kind of an idiot. But he did end up leaving Chelsea in 11th place at the time of his sacking, and they did not really recover very well last season. I don't think Potter's a bad manager. I just don't know if he's a big club manager. At Chelsea, he changed his appearance a lot when he took the post. He looked more like, and I feel like someone else said this earlier, but this is exactly what I think of when I think of Graham Potter before and after joining Chelsea. It was like the Mighty Ducks, the second Mighty Ducks 2, right? When Gordon gets that job managing Team USA and he sees the Iceland manager with his black suit and his slicked up hair, and Gordon starts to change his appearance, and he just didn't look like it fit him very well. It's the same with Chelsea, or Potter at Chelsea. He looked like someone cosplaying as a big club manager rather than it just didn't look like it fit. Looks like whenever I have to wear like a bow tie or something, you could tell I don't really enjoy it. It's not my thing. I could see it going very similar at United as it did for Chelsea, for Potter, especially with the pressure and the high profile players we already have and what we can expect at United. Chelsea, you could say they're a big club. When it comes to the pressure and the media coverage and the scrutiny and the criticism, United is easily 10, 20, 30 times more. It's just the way it is. Complain about it all you want, rival fans. It's just the facts. That's just the way it is. Like I said with Ten Hag, this isn't Ajax and this isn't Brighton. This is United. You have to aim higher. You have to think bigger. You have to deal with more pressure and scrutiny. You have to be able to be flexible and adjust and navigate these things in a much, much different way. And that's really the main criteria, right? How can you handle that jump? I think Potter would get more love from the media, kind of like how Poch would get love from the media when he was linked. He was a lot of media's favorites to become manager, a lot of ex-players' favorites. I think Potter would get that. Potter still, for some reason, holds this high status. And I think a lot of that has to do with what was going on at Chelsea and what's still going on at Chelsea. I don't understand how Ten Hag doesn't get that grace, because United are a friggin' mess, and we have been for a decade, whereas Chelsea have just been kind of dealing with their stuff for a year or so. But it is what it is. He'll get love from the media, but only so far as the status quo remains, because eventually the media will turn on everybody at United. They just can't stand it. Tactically, we did see Potter evolve during his time at Brighton. He tended to change formations and tactics regularly during the 21-22 season, but then at the start of the 22-23 season, he kind of solidified a formation. We saw him kind of stick with the 3-5-2, using Alexis McAllister as a deep playmaker, and Caicedo more of kind of like what Ndidi has become this season at Leicester in the Championship. Is more, he's physical presence, but he's more of a box-to-box physical presence. And then Pascal Gross was kind of that roaming 8 who could make some late runs into the area and kind of serve as like a higher up link-up player, as opposed to the season prior when Pascal Gross has played a little higher and like that 3-4-2-1 behind the striker. Potter is praised as a modern, progressive, unconventional manager. There's a chapter in Ben Littleton's book, which I keep forgetting to grab out of my room for these videos. But Ben Littleton has a book called Edge. There's a whole chapter in there about Graham Potter. It's a good chapter. Focuses mainly on his time at Östersunds in Sweden. But it talks a lot about specifically getting how he encourages players and his staff to get involved in community activities like theater and music and whatnot. And that's to get them out of their comfort zone, develop problem solving and critical thinking skills in new, unfamiliar situations, not just on the football pitch. You get your brain adapting to new situations, not just relying on patterns all the time, but being able to kind of respond in a moment, creatively and critically. That's what he was going for. And this has a lot to do with Potter's background and his education. He's a very good man manager. He has a master's in emotional intelligence. So maybe it's just a psychologist in me as well with a master's in psychology, but I like that. I like that approach to things. Getting the players to think differently. It can do a lot to give you an edge. Obviously, that's what the book's called. It develops player mentality and overall personhood in different ways, but it also builds team cohesion through these activities, which is another chapter in that book, cohesion. We already talked about in another video the correlation between cohesion and development and cohesion and performance. Through problem solving and support and challenging each other through these shared new tasks and challenges, he developed players in new ways, and that's never a bad thing. He's always finding new, interesting ways to engage. Players also like that, especially on the training pitch. They like being challenged and tested, and they don't just like monotony, the same old, same old. It's like, oh, let's do rondos. Cool. Everybody does rondos. Let's do something different. Get them thinking in different ways. That's how you promote growth. That's how you promote mental growth as well. So where does Potter rank, though, in terms of my criteria? Tactics and match impact, I would give him a 6 out of 10. You saw him at Brighton, change around his midfielders a lot to get the best out of them. And he trained these players high up the pitch, especially in the final third, to interchange, to be able to read positioning of their teammates and take up positions to better impact the chance creation and the overall play, especially in the final third. Potter has shown that he can evolve, moving from possession-based system to one season to a transitional style. In his last season at Brighton, they were very quick on a transition, pressing high up the pitch, as opposed to being patient and possession-based. Pressing from the front, but with more control, not going overboard with the press, not just everyone flying in. Pressing isn't just about closing down the person with the ball. There's much more to it than that. My dog can chase me if I have the ball, but there's much more to it than that. It's about looking for the pressing triggers, pressing as a team, creating traps sometimes. There's a lot that goes into it. It does rely heavily on a different caliber of player, and not all of United's players can do that. So that would be maybe a hard thing for him to get used to. I think his tactics would appeal to United in the way we want to play, as his Brighton side did become more direct. We saw a lot of long balls from their center backs. I think our fans would like that a lot. Yeah, there's high pressing. It's energetic. There's a lot of attacking, quick transition. I think we would enjoy that. I think that the issue is one issue potentially, again, the players. And I think that if we were to do what he wants to do and what he's comfortable with in that 3-5-2, we're going to have to change a lot of our setup, a lot of our recruitment. Some of our players are going to become a little bit redundant, and we're going to have to identify and target new caliber and new profiles of players. Wide wingers like Rashford may not fit in very well unless they can adjust. So maybe in a 3-5-2, Rashford could play up top with Højlund, but maybe in a 3-4-2-1, he could play as one of those. But Rashford likes space. He likes being wide. And then he likes to cut in. It's not going to work out so well in a Potter system. 3 center backs means we're going to need more depth in that position than just when you play with 2. Obviously, I think some of our players could transition. I think Shaw could easily slot in as a left-sided center back. We've seen him do that before with tremendous results. I think that it means we might not have to sell all our center backs necessarily. With 3 of them, I think they could work together a little bit and not have to so much accommodate any sort of weaknesses or holes in each other's games as well. We don't have to worry about the complementing because there's 3 of them now. But the 3-5-2 also means we rely heavily on midfield, and I think that the midfield is where we are weakest at the moment in terms of quality on the ball and player IQ or football IQ. Mainu's got it. Bruno has it. He's got composure. Mount, jury's out because we haven't really seen him play enough. But other than that, Casemiro looks like he's out the door. McTominay, maybe higher up the pitch, he could do a job, but I don't see him as that midfielder who's going to have that footballing IQ. I don't have a personal problem with McTominay. He can do a job, but I think that we can do better than McTominay. So we are going to have to replace a few players and raise the floor of the squad, like I've said many times, in order to suit something like this for Graham Potter. Number 2, man management and egos. I give him a 6 out of 10. You could probably argue a 5 out of 10, but I think the Chelsea tenure hurts him more than anything because as I've just said, working with his players at Östersund, his players at Brighton, he's highly rated in terms of just his engagement, his communication, his man management. He understands the importance of the players and the staff around him, and he values that. And he's worked hard to develop an area in that area of his management that's already kind of a natural inclination. He's wanted to strengthen that even more. That's why he got his master's in that, and why he engages with them on a regular basis. He believes in creating an overall environment that supports his team and his staff. Like, that's what he's all about, because he values them highly. And as a business owner myself, I can understand and relate to that. You want your staff to be happy to buy in, and they want that engagement. They want to know that they're valued. It's important. He's got very excellent communication skills, which is not always easy to do. I can easily see how Ten Hag's maybe his approach, his personality a little bit. If anything, the way he is in pressers is an indication of maybe how he communicates behind the scenes. I could very easily see how there's maybe a disconnect there. It remains to be seen how Potter can manage bigger egos and player profiles, but at Chelsea, it definitely looked like it was a big ask of him. He had some issues with Hakim Ziyech, if you remember, who they were trying to get rid of. Hakim Ziyech flew to Paris. They thought it was this and that, and didn't end up working out. Aubameyang, in one sentence, Potter would praise Aubameyang, but then he wasn't using him that frequently, so it's difficult to say what's going on there. I do think it was a bit like David Moyes. Just a lot of that was overwhelming. It was a lot going on at once, and I don't think that every manager can handle all that. If an Ancelotti were to come into Chelsea at that time, or United where we are now, I think Ancelotti would probably better handle a lot of these situations that he walks into than maybe Ten Hag and Graham Potter might. I don't know. Let me know if you agree or not. So, yeah, while Potter can be a good man manager, figuring out how to balance inherited egos and new players, because there's a lot of players that came in at Chelsea. We're going to have a big rebuild for us as well. It takes time to get a bunch of new players to gel in. That is part of it. Rotating, managing, figuring out how all the different pieces work together. That's part of it. So we've really yet to see how that looks for Potter, how he can manage that. So it's kind of a question mark, but that's why he still gets a 6 out of 10 there, because of what we've seen him do at Brighton and Ostersunds in terms of man management. Big club pressure and personality. This is probably his biggest hit. Is I give him a 3 out of 10 here. I will preface this by saying that Todd Boehly carries the majority of the blame for what went wrong for Potter at Chelsea. I think that a lot of the media and a lot of fans would agree. Boehly has no idea what he's doing. And Chelsea, remember, they did sack 2 managers that same season, Potter. So, and this is after Todd Boehly was assuring people, like, I'm not going to swing the axe the same way Roman Abramovich did in the past. We're not going to do that. But again, it did feel like Potter was out of his depth, kind of like David Moyes when he took over the job at United. Again, changed his hair, changed his appearance, changes what he was wearing. There was also some reports when things started to derail a little bit that Chelsea players began to question Potter's lack of experience when things started to slip. There was a lot of reports that they were kind of doubting him. Chelsea fans, too, were very vocal with their lack of confidence in him when results started to go against him. There was a lot of booing, a lot of social media outrage, a lot of online outrage. And I don't think that patience is given at this level of football. And I do personally question his decision to leave Brighton in September of 2022 to join Chelsea. I thought that was a weird thing. I mean, I get it. Maybe it's hard to turn down a chance to manage a big club like Chelsea, but it's like when I see players like I question Anthony, like when there were reports that he was not showing up to training to try to force a move to United. Like, that's the kind of thing that's to me, that's a red flag. That to me doesn't show very professional behavior, doesn't show wise decision making. It's like I chalk it up in the same kind of poor decision making, like Marcus Rashford's decision not to get surgery and instead try to go to the Euros and things. Like, these are not good decisions, and I have a hard time believing that, like in Rashford's case, that was something he discussed with Ollie. I have a hard time believing Anthony was getting good advice from people around him. I don't know what Potter was thinking doing that. I mean, it's every manager thinks, I could be the one to turn this around. I could be the one to do this. Of course, you're going to back yourself. That's just normal. The same with players. But leaving in September, a month into the season, that's odd. Let me know if you agree on that. Let's talk about his crisis management skills. I do that at 3 out of 10. Again, overwhelmed by the circumstances at Chelsea at the time. Yes, he walked into a lot, but you have to learn how to manage that. You are going to have to sink or swim sometimes, and that can be the difference maker. he scrambled to get a handle on things. And I remember reading like he was scheduling like all these rapid fire one-on-one meetings with players and staff to try to just kind of get everybody galvanized and try to build some of that togetherness and understand where everybody was at. It was just, again, a lot to handle at once. He did inherit a lot of chaos at Chelsea, like I said, similar to Ten Hag, but navigating it is part of the job, and he didn't do a good enough job in that regard. You can be the best sailor in the world, but you have to be able to manage storms. You have to be able to handle rough waters and all this thing. And you can't call yourself a good sailor unless you've done that. And a smooth sea has never made a good sailor, if you have ever heard that saying before. So, like I said with Ten Hag, it might be that the chaos was too big for someone of Potter's level, but that's what you're going to get at United as well. He was conceding soft goals at Chelsea, which was an issue the same way it is for us. Again, if we're going to criticize Ten Hag for conceding the soft goals and setting up his team that way, we got to do it for Potter. Let's look at qualifications. I did give him a 4 out of 10 for qualifications. A lot of this has more to do with what he did at Ostersunds and then what he did at Brighton than Chelsea. And yeah, he did good things with Brighton, but he didn't win anything. For as far as Brighton standards, yeah, it was good. But De Zerbi has already come in and done a little better than that in his first season. So he won the Svenska Cupen at Ostersunds, and then he achieved 3 promotions with Ostersunds in 5 seasons, including back-to-back promotions and promotion to Sweden's top flight for the first time in their history. That is a big deal. Same with Ollie winning with Molde. People will sit here and say it's Molde. Well, you only compete with who you have, with who you're playing in your league. And Potter got 3 promotions to 5 years, back-to-back promotions, and got him to the top flight. That's a big deal. That's the first time. Can you imagine, like, being the manager who gets a club like that to their top flight for the first time ever in their history? Add to that, he got them qualified for the Europa League as well. That's a huge deal. Maybe I'll jump that up to a 5 out of 10, actually, when I consider. We'll do it a 5 out of 10 for that. So at Brighton, Potter managed to give a lot of clubs, big clubs, black eyes. I remember he beat us in early game of the season the other year. And he got Brighton at the time, he got Brighton to their best finish, which was 9th place in the league. Obviously, De Zerbi's come in and got 6th last season, but at the time, what Potter did was the best that they've done. 9th place was a big deal for Brighton. He played good football on a very limited budget. Brighton are used to losing a lot of players. And again, he was being looked at by a lot of big clubs, and he was widely considered to be the next big thing in management, Graham Potter. And so the Chelsea situation does hurt his case. If we were a club like West Ham or, I don't know, Aston Villa even, although Aston Villa are looking a lot better. If we were a club like West Ham, I would be like, okay, he's probably a good fit to take over for David Moyes. But this is United. If he couldn't cut it at Chelsea, if that was too much for him, if that was too much pressure, if the Eagles were too high, if the chaos, the expectations, the scrutiny, the criticism, if that was too high for him to handle at Chelsea, he'll explode the moment he walks in to United. He will literally explode just from the sheer overwhelming nature of the job itself. And that's before he even has to start dealing with anything. And so I do think that Potter, I don't think he's a bad manager. Not at all. I would say that he's just not a big club manager. Maybe not yet. He's still young. What is he, like 40 in his late 40s, 48, 49-ish? So he's young in manager terms. He's not like the young, like the Amarims, the Matas, the Nagelsmann. He's not that generation. But we will see what happens with Potter. Potter's not going to be out of work for long. Like West Ham are probably going to be looking for a manager. They've interviewed Ruben Amorim, so David Moyes is gone. That could be a good fit for Graham Potter, in my opinion. They have a lot of decent players there right now. And I think that could probably be the perfect club for him to walk into and kind of sink his teeth back into management and give himself a good platform to get back to where he was. I think that he could do more with West Ham than he did at Brighton, honestly. But we'll see how it goes. We're gonna continue this series tomorrow. We're gonna take a look tomorrow at Roberto De Zerbi. So be sure to stop by for that. And let me know your thoughts on this video and the series if it's something you want to keep taking a look at. Like I said, I got a lot of videos planned for it. I do like doing these series. They do take a lot of work, a lot of prep, and a lot of research, but it's worth it. I enjoy it. But I'm more curious to hear what your thoughts are. So Don't forget to hit the like button on the video. Don't forget to leave comments. Let me know what you think. You know, am I way off the mark when it comes to Ten Hag or Graham Potter? Do you want Potter anywhere near? Is he your top pick? Like, I remember I posted a couple weeks ago when we started doing really bad, mostly as a joke, but I had created Graham Potter as a manager in FC24 and kind of took a screenshot of it and posted like, oh, time to start a new FC24 United manager mode, because that's the way it looked at the time. But we'll see. Again, Potter probably not the best fit for United, but he's a good manager and he'll do well at another club, probably like in the West Ham kind of range. So let me know your thoughts. Come back tomorrow. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Check me out at MUFC versus everybody on Twitter. And I will see you tomorrow morning for the roundup. And then probably again later afternoon, I'll drop another one of these manager videos on Roberto De Zerbi. So I will talk to you then. Thanks for stopping by. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Take it easy.